The media has been colonized for more than 5 years with massive government payments. I don't think most Canadians know this, but pretty much every single newsroom in Canada gets about 30 or 35 grand per journalist from the government. That's every single newspaper. There is no newspaper in Canada that doesn't get that funding. And on the TV side, there's similar funding rules. In some cases, of course, it's outright funded by government, like the CBC. So more than 99% of Canadian journalists are subsidized in some way by the government, and they know it. And even if they're independent minded, subconsciously they realize, well, that's for the last 10 years, at least the Liberal government. And Pierre Poilievre specifically campaigned on reducing government subsidies to journalists. And there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that that affected how journalists covered the election. And journalists started to see themselves as an appendage of the government or a defender of the government. And I think when Rebel News had 4 journalists ask questions in the leaders' debate, there were 17 questions. You just had to get in line. There was no magic to it. There was two microphones, and people got in line. And Rebel News had 4 questions out of 17, which, it's a respectable number. The CBC had the same number. And really, we don't get access to the Prime Minister much at all because we're not allowed in to the Parliamentary Press Gallery. But the fact that we were not on the official narrative, on the official script, is what caused the freakout from our government journalism rivals. I watched the CBC's Rosemary Barton, Adrian Arsenault, and David Cochrane, I think is his name. Their objection to us was our content. One of them said, well, those issues they asked about weren't in the leaders' debate. They shouldn't be allowed to ask it. Someone else said, that's not a debate we have in Canada. I mean, who are the CBC to gatekeep? Don't they see they're not sounding like journalists anymore? They're sounding like auxiliaries of power. I fear that we're coming to the point where there will soon only be 2 different classes of journalists in Canada: those paid by the government and those punished or regulated or silenced by the government. Because in addition to the carrot I've been talking about, there's the stick. The carrot is the free money. The stick, well, there's various forms of censorship. One of them that was working its way through Parliament until Trudeau dissolved the Parliament was called C-63, the Online Harms Act, that would allow anyone to file a complaint against you if they thought your comments were offensive. And they don't need to have been harmed by it. They don't need to have been the target of your comments. Just nuisance complaints. For example, you probably know who I'm talking about. On the West Coast, there's a transgender extremist named Jonathan Yaniv. He was the guy who first got famous by going to female estheticians, sort of saying, my name is Jessica. And when he shows up, he's this big brute. And he says, wax my balls or I'm taking it to the Human Rights Commission. That kind of nuisance litigant. A vexatious litigant, he would have a field day with this. So all sorts of bad faith actors could suddenly file endless complaints with the Canadian government against any commentator they want, and the government machinery goes to work against them. So that was what was proposed in Bill C-63, amongst other things. So you have the carrot, the payoff, the bonus, the reward, if you're a compliant journalist like Rosemary Barton, Adrian Arsenault, et cetera. And if you dare to be independent and say things that are off narrative, well, the government has all sorts of censorship. That bill also had 3 different censorship bureaucracies it would create. It also created a standalone crime called hate that would actually allow you to serve life in jail. You don't even do life in jail in Canada for manslaughter, but for the crime of hate, you could. So that's the state of journalism in this country. Is because we don't have a First Amendment. It's because our version of the First Amendment, Section 2 of the Charter of Rights, is quite weak by contrast. But alas, we fight on.